Good afternoon, all. You are welcome to this section, facilitation session of mathematical method for physics, which is taking place today, and it's going to be coming up uh, every Thursday, 4 to 5 p.m. And today is more or less like an introduction to the course. Basically, today we are going to be looking at the structure of the courses and some of the concepts we are going to cover in the course. Like I've told you in the earlier mail that I sent to you uh, some days back, I believe all of you by now will have gotten access to the facilitation plan for the online courses. So we shall be looking at uh, we shall be looking at some few modules, that is module 1 and module 2. Uh, for each of these modules, we are going to be looking at some courses, and some of these courses have been broken down into different areas in which we are going to cover within 8 weeks. So, for example, the objective of the course is to understand the complex variable and its properties. So, we are going to be discussing what complex variable is in the first few weeks and also their properties. Likewise, we are going to be looking at analytical functions and complex integral. So this in this area, we are going to be looking at how to solve some functions using some defined laws and procedures, such as complex integrals approach and some others. Likewise, we are going to be looking at another idea that we normally use to solve problems, which is called residual theorem, to solve some problems and also look at how we can apply them. Likewise, we shall be looking at eigenvalue problem and diagonalization of matrices. Subsequently, in the weeks, we shall also look at tensors analysis and integral equations. And with time on our side, we shall be able to demystify most of these things. So, like I told you, the first week, if you look at the breakdown, the first week is basically consists of using the content of the course guide, which is physics 313. Then, if you look at it, the lectures are subdivided into two: synchronous way and also asynchronous. So if you look at the synchronous ways, we shall be discussing this at least for 1 hour, like the one we are having now. So while we shall be using the PowerPoint slide approach and also try to do one or two things contact during the facilitations. So you are expected to look at NENA activities in which you are expected to study the course guide. In the process, you identify the areas that are difficult for you, and subsequently, you also try to check your emails at least twice in a week. Like 2 days or 3 days back, I sent some emails across to some of you, nearly all about 30 or thereabout students taking this course, to check their mail and be able to familiar with what we shall be discussing today. So I think so. Like I said, you are expected to go through the mails and be able to respond to some of the instructions that are going to be sending across to you. So, in the second week, we shall be looking at functions of complex variable. Here, we try as much as possible to define what uh, complex variables are and their functions, the equation connecting them. How can we solve some of the problem? So you are expected to know their variable, their properties, then how to solve some of the problems related to complex variable. So like some of the properties like addition and subtractions, how do you subtract or add or multiply or carry out division in line with complex variables. So also we shall be looking at complex conjugate. So these are things we are going to be looking at in the second week, which is probably by next week. In the process, I think by the end of the class today, I will send the slide of the lecture, the slide lecture of what we are going to discuss next week to all the students. So in which you are expected to go through them, learn one or two things from it, try to demystify it, and if you have problem, then in the class next week you'll be able to ask and we see how we can solve the problem. So by third week, by God's grace, we shall be looking at Cauchy sequence. So in this case, we try to look at how to evaluate Cauchy sequence and also discuss what Cauchy sequence are, some of the problem involved in Cauchy sequence and how to solve them, the techniques that we are expected to use in solving some of these issues. So like I'm going to do for you next week, I'll also do the same thing, prepare a lecture slide which I will send to you guys to go through some days before the class, and also attach some problems in which you are expected to solve and demystify. And also if you look at the course handbook, you will see some of the problem in it and also try to understand how things are. In the fourth week, we shall be looking at geometric interpretation of complex function. Like if you are familiar with complex functions or not, there's something we call geometric. You move from from polar coordinate to Cartesian, from Cartesian coordinate to polar coordinate. So when you are moving to polar coordinate, you'll be looking at how to transit from one region to another. That is, moving from one coordinate to another, and how do you solve some of the problems, and the way to handle some of these problems are what we are going to be discussing under the geometric interpretation of complex function. So by the fifth week, we shall be looking at analytical functions. So the question is, what are analytical functions? How do we solve them? What are the procedures to be followed in solving all these analytical functions? And what are the examples? So these are things we shall be looking at, and we will look at it together critically with examples and to try as much as possible to understand how some of these problems will be handled. While in the sixth week, we shall be looking at complex integral. So we will be looking at what complex integral is and what complex integrals are. Then what are the likely problems that requires complex integral approach to solve. So these are things which I'll be looking at, and specifically this is in module 2 and unit 2 of the course. I think I attached the course material when I sent the mail earlier on, which I believe some of you might have downloaded and look at one or two things there. So also um, by the seventh week, we shall be looking at residual theorem, which is probably the last aspect of the course that we may likely discuss. Then in the eighth week is just for us to revise one or two things, and if you have problem, you ask them, we look at it together. So this specifically is the breakdown of what you are expected to treat or look into in this course for this facilitation process. So I think we have few students that have joined the class. Uh, so if you have any questions, you can ask me. If something, let it be a kind of an interactive section for today. So you are free to ask questions. I think I'm seeing Idubo and also David. So if you have any question, you can ask. Is there anybody asking question? Idubo, do you have any question for me?
Hello, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you?
Very
Yeah, you
fine,
are
sir.
joining us from which part of the country?
Delta State.
Delta. Okay, you are welcome on board.
Yes, sir.
Uh,
Okay.
David,
I
you have
wanted
any
to,
question? Okay, you want to ask a question? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to find out the course material complex analysis is not very clear. It's not written well. It's not, some of the things they are not showing, and some of them are scattered.
Yes, I
So
understand that. The problem with that is because the course materials was not prepared by me. Are you getting me now? So the course
okay,
material was actually prepared by now, and it was tested using Word, and in the process, most of these equations were not properly captured. But in the meantime, I've looked at them. So that is the reason why I will show you something now. So if you look at, I will share my screen with you now. So, I said I will be sending some notes to you. So can you see my screen?
yes, sir.
Okay. So if you look at this now, I've tried as much as possible to demystify some of the missing things in this slide to explain what and what they are. Are you getting me now?
Okay, sir.
So going through this, I will send this to you at the end of this class. So going through them, you should be able to understand one or two things that is needed for you to understand as regards to this idea. Is that taken?
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Sorry, sir. Will you be uploading it every week, or you upload them full?
No, every week. At the end of the class, I will upload it and I will send an email across to everyone that I've uploaded it. You can go to the course page to download those informations.
Okay.
Is that taken?
Okay, sir.
Okay. So David, do you have any question? David,
Um, Hello, sir. Good afternoon.
good afternoon. How are you?
I'm fine, sir.
Yeah.
I think I'm calling from Abuja.
Abuja. Okay, it's nice having you on board.
All right, sir. Sir, I think this is our first class, right, sir?
Yes.
Okay. So I was thinking that maybe we have already,
No.
I've already met
This is the
things.
fourth week,
Okay.
and today is just for us to get used to what we are expected to learn and to interact with each other.
Okay. All right, sir. But sir, here normally I do have a network issue, so I don't know whether maybe if we are done, I can easily get the video also from the store, right?
Sure. The idea behind this online session is to record the live session, and at the end of the class, you upload it. Then you allow the student to have access to it. So at the end of this class today,
Yes.
I will try to upload this video on the course page, and then I will send you the password for you to be able to download it and have access to the information. Is that okay?
Okay. All right, sir. It's okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So I think we have just two of you, including me, making three in the house. And since we are not going to go deep into some technical things today, we are just interested in explaining what and what we're expected to learn today throughout the courses. So I would like to say thank you for coming so that we are joining the class to next week. But in the meantime, by the end of the class today, I will upload the video and also send the PDF of this lecture to you, which is going to be the lecture for next week. Is that taken? Am I communicating?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. So I think I have to stop the class. So see you next week.